Everyone online, thanks for being here. It's great to have you all for our digital debate, engaging the at-home consumer. This is our second virtual event in the last week. So before I get started and introduce the panel, I wanted to give a big shout out to Landmark's events team, who has been super agile and pivoted on the fly and put together some amazing virtual events. We will continue to do this. Look forward to everyone who's on here, listening, watching around the world. Share your feedback. We're going to continue to do these and look to optimize and improve them, and we'd love to get all of you participating. So thanks again for being here. Quick introduction, I'm Scott Zakheim. I've met a lot of you who are registered, and I think we have some new friends who have joined. I'm a digital partner here at Landmark Ventures, run our digital tech practice. I work with brands, emerging tech, work with venture capital, and basically play as an intermediary between our stakeholder groups. We drive business, we drive innovation, we drive deal flow. We do it in a few ways. We do banking, we do events, and then we do biz dev services. And it's all about synergies, connecting people within our Rolodex, and creating great outcomes. So look forward to building on today's conversation, engaging with all of you after this. I know it's a crazy time. I know every day is different and it's a fluid situation. So I'm excited to be able to do this, to provide this platform, and look forward to doing it again with all of you soon. We have an esteemed panel today. They have amazing thoughts to share, so I want to get right to it. We have Orchid Bertelsen, who is head of digital innovation at Nestle, and Daniel Freedman, co-founder and CEO of BurnAlong. Both come with amazing backgrounds and a unique story. I think they each bring a very different perspective on today's new normal, and excited to hear what they have to say as we think about how brands are adjusting to the new normal and looking for the smartest, most creative ways to engage the at-home consumer. So I guess I want to start by kicking it to both of you. How are you guys doing, first of all, and how are you and your brands approaching this new normal from a day-to-day perspective, operations perspective, and also from a people's perspective? Orchid, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for that introduction, and of course, for having me here along with Daniel. So nice to meet him. Yeah, I mean, time is a flat circle now, so I think we're not quite sure what day it is. I think that there's new information coming to light every day. And so it's obviously quite a chaotic time, I think, when it comes to, hey, how do you approach work? How do you approach the business? And then also, how do you approach your own life? We were talking about this a bit, but there are a lot of us with kids in the household, or maybe boomer parents who just won't stay home. So for us, to kind of focus on the business side of things, we're in an interesting position because we are considered an essential service. So many of you may know that Nestle is the largest food CPG in the world. We have about 2,000 brands worldwide. My purview is just the US. So there are only about 40 to 60 brands in my portfolio on any given day. And it ranges the gamut from DiGiorno to Coffee Mate, to Nesquik, Toll House, a lot of your favorite brands. And as you all know, we are making sure that we get food to our retailer partners each and every day, making sure that our supply chain is keeping up. And so business for us, it is more focused, I want to say, when it comes to demand generation or marketing activities. We are deprioritizing that, because our first priority and our main focus is just to make sure that we get foods to everybody's household.
Daniel, what is it looking like for you?
So on a personal level, like all of you, are adjusting to working from home, and I'm sure at any point during this, my kids will make a cameo appearance. In terms of the company BurnAlong, we've really been built for this situation. So where we're focused on is bridging online and offline experiences as it comes to health and wellness. And so what we do is we enable people from their homes to take classes online from a growing network of hundreds and hundreds of local gyms, studios, and wellness professionals. So people whose classes have been shut down right now, they're still offering those classes virtually on our platform, as they offer all year round. And then also what you're able to do is take classes live with others that you invite. And so, I mean, we had a terrific year last year where we grew 25x. What we've seen, as you can imagine, during this time is just more and more people have been coming to us, both on the content producer side, as well as on the company and individual side, because, for as much as we talk about people loving in the past remote work and that flexibility, people crave real interactions. They crave social interactions. And what we do all year round, and especially now, is bring people their favorite instructors, or they can discover favorite instructors, and their friends or family live with them. So it's been a non-stop couple of weeks while adjusting the whole team to working remotely ourselves.
Yeah, so let's get to it from a consumer engagement perspective, engaging that at-home consumer. And maybe Orchid, will go with you first again. And you spoke to it a little bit, but do you stay the course here? Is there a shift in strategy? Is it a day-to-day strategic call? What does that look like? And you said something yesterday that I think will resonate in terms of messaging being a key piece of that.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to, oops, I'm getting a little feedback, sorry. When it comes to digital innovation and just engaging with consumers, my purview is more on emerging technologies and building new engagement platforms. Some of it includes a little bit of new business models, but it's really how do we use technology to build this one-to-one connection with human people who are also our consumers. So I think, with this change happening, it's just exacerbating that, right? I think that, for us, what you're really seeing too, when you look at e-commerce for grocery, that side of the business still has a lot of opportunity to grow. Now, there are a lot of industries that we tend to look at who happen to be first movers when it comes to utilizing technology for engagement. So beauty, fashion, those are really big verticals who are first movers. Food, and especially food sold through grocery stores, tend to be lagging. Now, in this atmosphere, people are being forced to engage in e-commerce, to, just kind of purchase more and select their assortment more online. So, and people are just online more. So we've always had a push to digital communications, digital marketing. In effect, that doesn't necessarily change, but we are doing a lot of work to anticipate what are the behaviors and routines that are and habits, to be honest, that are being shaped now that will impact that consumer when things go back to, I guess, the new normal. And you mentioned too, we had a conversation around messaging. Messaging is always important, right? Because especially coming from large brands, what you don't want to do is end up on, the subreddit, hello, fellow kids, because you're trying to tap into culture and it just feels very cringy. So for us, messaging always has to be authentic to us as a company, to our brands, and to the people who love our brands. And I think that is more important than ever, because there's so much scrutiny, people are scared. And so even well-meaning communication, if delivered a little incorrectly, could just have outsized consequences. So if message was king before, it certainly is emperor now.
Yeah, I think being conscientious communicators is going to be so critical. So Daniel, pivoting to you, and I had a brief email exchange with our friend out in LA, Ben Zimmerman, who runs Media Design Group. He was kind of laying out the media landscape for me a little bit in terms of some of the big brands pulling back, some of these more emerging brands taking advantage of inventory that's opened up and CPMs that have dropped. Is this a moment in time where an emerging brand like yours, Daniel, can take advantage of that, being able to get to your targeted audiences in a cheaper, more effective way while some of that inventory is freed up and while everyone's on their computers and watching TV?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting opportunity, I think, for everyone as new channels open up and how you deal with this new normal. And I'd echo though what Orchid said, is that it's really, you do have to be careful how you're coming across. And for us, it's very much about comfort and need, and bringing to people what they need, and trying to keep their lives going as normal as possible under these difficult circumstances. And if it's conveyed in the right way, then that's really important, and that's where you can demonstrate your value at this time.
So we got into a great conversation in our prep call yesterday. I want to dig into that in terms of looking at what's going on, the fact that we're all at home and we're all really engaged on as many screens as possible at any moment. Do you see this as a short-term blip on the radar, or is this a long-term paradigm shift that COVID will trigger that will affect brands and retail and everyone for a long, long time? And if it's one way or the other, how do you all react to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of these behaviors and mass adoption of different technology, that's going to stay. Because when you think about habits, they're shaped in about 21 days. I won't tell you how many weeks of, shelter in place this is because I've frankly lost track. But there are a lot of things that we're doing now that are shaping our behaviors. And honestly, like we talked about this a little bit, shaping our kids as well. My daughter turns 3 in May, and this morning she hid in a closet with her toy phone and said that she had a conference call and she needed privacy. So these are going to be years that where, even her daycare, we are on Zoom calls every day so that she can see her friends, or even FaceTiming, my friends. I mean, she just goes down my phone and calls people. I'm like, why are you calling people without scheduling it first like a psychopath? And I was like, oh, wait, maybe this is just something that we're going to do now. So when you think about what is truly important and technology's role in it, I mean, that will surely change, because even before this happened, I mean, there's so many memes and jokes going on about how you're at a restaurant with a bunch of friends and everybody's on their phone, right? And now when you're in a situation where we have access to our screens at all times, all we crave is that human connection. And so I think I want to pass it over to Daniel, because I think even your business, I mean, how you've seen people engage with fitness online is super fascinating, and would love to get your perspective too on how that you think will change your business.
Yeah, thank you. And what I say is we primarily work with people who are not thinking just in the next 1, 2, 3 months, but we work with HR departments for like all their employees, and for family members of employees, and they usually are looking with us at the next 2, 3 years, as well as we work with brick and mortar gym studios and wellness professionals, and they too are not just looking at the next 2, 3 months, it's the next couple of years. So we are seeing that there is this fundamental shift with the acknowledgement you can't not reach people online. So for brick and mortar gyms and studios who used to say, listen, we don't need an online presence, we're just going to rely on people being able to come to us every day, they now know that's not the case. And it is a hybrid. Even in regular times, you have to have an online piece now. For companies, how are you delivering wellness to your employees? It's not just having an on-site yoga instructor, it's really how are you reaching people to the homes. But with that said, it's very much not the online is going to be the future. What Orchid said is exactly on, is that people are craving this in-person experience. And the way that we see their industry is similar to how, if you look at other industries have evolved, if you look at the sports industry or the music industry, it's very much a symbiotic relationship between the online and the offline. Yeah. You go to see your favorite team in person, you listen to your favorite artist in a concert, and in between you do it online. We believe, and this is what we've been seeing for the last couple of years, is that it's a similar way with, in our industry, the health and wellness industry, where retail needs to have an online extension to reach people from the home, but brick and mortar is never going to disappear. It's just, you need to have the online component. And if you look at the trends before this, you saw the big online giants, like folks like Amazon building brick and mortar and buying Whole Foods. Online companies like Warby Parker and Casper building brick and mortar stores. So it's more of like a Disney type experience to what goes on in person, but you still want that in person, and the online is the perfect way to bridge the gap between.
Yeah, and I'd like to build on that too, especially when it comes to food and grocery shopping. I mean, our business is that we're manufacturers, right? We distribute through our retailer partners. And even when it came to e-commerce for grocery shopping, that was lagging a bit behind because a lot of people like to physically examine their fruits and vegetables, or, there's this discovery aspect of walking down the aisle. And so this is obviously forcing everyone to shop online or to shop remotely. And I say remotely because there's a local market over here who's literally just taking your grocery list and you email it to them, and they will pick out what you put in, and then they show up with a receipt at your front door. And so I think, with all this happening right now, I don't necessarily think that after this, everybody's going to be shopping remotely, but I do think it'll settle in somewhere around the middle, where a lot of people will expect these, I think, better consumer experiences through digital and grocery shopping, but still want that offline experience or that brick and mortar experience.
And you guys, in talking yesterday, go ahead, Daniel. Go ahead.
I just added, I think Orchid's point earlier on the habit forming is really key, because what we saw, if we go back maybe 4 or 5 months ago, is a lot of people said, well, I'm not sure how I'd feel comfortable working out from my home and not being in person, or I'm not necessarily comfortable with some of the technology involved. What this has forced is forced people to take a crash course in the technology and to really understand how technology can bridge experiences for them. And so what we are seeing is, like, the common feedback is, oh, wow, it's much easier than I thought. And this is great. And even when things go back to normal, I'm still going to be doing this online, offline hybrid.
So there'll be more of a balance. But what's interesting and taking away from our conversation in prep yesterday is that you almost think that there will be, in the immediate aftermath to COVID, a run back to the normal. So you might see even more foot traffic in brick and mortar, more in-person engagement in gyms, because folks have been so sequestered for however long it's going to be. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, and listen, we see this in regular times as well. So if you look in, like, the fitness market, only 15% of the population go to a gym or studio. So for 85% of the population, they're used to doing nothing or doing things at home. And what we do by giving them online access to local gyms and studios is give them a window in. And one of the biggest things that we see all year round is people, after getting that window in, getting comfortable with an instructor, they will then go in person because that barrier has been removed. So I think you're going to get a lot of new people who are discovering new favorites online, whether it's a new food, new content, whatever that is. And because it's been so easily delivered to their home now, then they're going to want to crave that in-person experience afterwards.
That's great. So a couple of things. One, anyone who's listening in, I have some questions that are coming via text from my team, so you can just throw those questions up on Zoom, and we'll use the last 10 minutes to do a Q&A with our esteemed panelists. But before we get to that, I wanted to give both Daniel and Orchid a chance to share some parting thoughts, parting shots. I'd like to do that on all my panels. So let me start with Daniel, and then Orchid, you'll go after that, and then we'll go into Q&A. And again, appreciate all the thoughts. Fantastic discussion. Hope we can continue it. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, sure. So we started the company at BurnAlong. It was for a very personal reason. It was because of my now late grandmother, who for the last 10 or so years of her life went from being this incredibly vivacious and life-loving person to getting depressed and gaining a lot of weight. And every doctor would tell her that she needs to exercise, and that's going to be part of the key to her recovery. But unless a family member came around, she wouldn't get out of bed. And so the question that really haunted me was, why with today's technology, when you're at home and you most need the support of others, are you cut off from them? And very quickly, like, now she's one of our board members, the former president and global head of HR of IKEA said, Daniel, this is where most of companies in the population is focused on. It's the 80% of the population that doesn't get the recommended levels of exercise. The 78% of those 55 plus who've got chronic conditions, they need all the support that they can get. And I think what we're seeing now during this time, and it's bringing home to everyone, is what people like, just say myself, who would normally go to a brick and mortar gym and studio and normally would go out with friends, and now seeing what that vast majority of the population are dealing with. And we are really fortunate when we're not fortunate to be in this crisis, but we're fortunate to be in this crisis with the technology that we have that is enabling us to do things like this type of panel, that is enabling us to bridge that. And so the thought I'd leave people with is, just realize all year round, the vast majority of the population are struggling with what you're struggling with right now.
Orchid, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Mine's more of a personal bent. I heard this and it helped. And so I try to wake up every morning and say it. Remember that you're not working from home. You are at home during a crisis trying to work. We come from a generation where a lot of our self-worth, and I'll speak personally, is tied to how productive you are. And in an era and at a time when we're all in front of our computers and the lines between work and home are absolutely blended, don't be so hard on yourself if you don't feel like you're as productive as you normally are. We're all doing our best, whether it's taking care of family. Again, telling my boomer parents to stay home, which they are not doing, but my suggestion or my hope is that we are all kind to ourselves and to each other during this difficult time.
Thanks for the thoughts, guys, and you're fantastic. Let's dig into some Q&A. We have it rolling in. First, from my good friend Ken Harvey, and maybe we'll kick this to Daniel because I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. And someone actually told me an anecdote today about the NFL preparing for its virtual draft, that teams are ramping up the security because their rival teams are hacking into their Zoom sessions when they're scouting for the draft, which is just fascinating to think about. So Ken asked, with the increased use of technology online, are companies like yours putting as much importance on security and privacy as they are creating new opportunities for marketing?
Yeah, so absolutely, that's pretty critical for us. We work with also hospitals and medical systems, so security and privacy has been a key factor for day one. I think we are at an advantage because we're not a business that has adopted for this new reality. We've been built for this new reality. And from a US perspective, from a European perspective, security, data privacy is first and foremost.
For Orchid, and this comes from my good friend Mike Monroe at Madras Global, you mentioned grocers specifically not necessarily being first movers into the e-commerce world, but now being forced into it. Once shoppers can return to stores, will grocers still focus on digital? What will they need in order to give those channels the resources it needs to drive meaningful business post-COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a mind reader for our retailer partners, but I would hope that this situation really opens their eyes to digital not just being a channel, but being a necessity. A lot of the retailer stores, I think, the big guys, I think, have been looking at e-commerce. A lot of the experience they have online is trying to replicate the offline experience. I think where the opportunity is for them is to truly come up with a digital first opportunity. So I would hope that they're investing in that. I think a lot of opportunity may also come with the smaller grocers, the mom and pop stores, the bodegas, kind of these regional grocers who, I had that example. We're actually in Michigan with family right now, who, if you're not brick and mortar and you're not shopping in their store, they have no way of selling to their consumers. So I would think that in a time like this, it would open their eyes to the power and the necessity of digital marketing and digital communications and technology.
This is for both of you from an anonymous attendee. Are there any interesting, unique approaches that you're seeing other brands take to engage the at-home consumer and just cool stuff that you're seeing that you want to call out?
Yeah, I can go. I think a lot of, they're not necessarily in food, but what I have loved to see are a lot of these D2C startups, a lot of these smaller brands where they're actually banding together. And so one of my favorite brands, she just sent out a newsletter recently, kind of listing all of the brands that they had partnerships with or were founded by other females. And so I think it's really interesting to kind of see this disparate or segmented landscape of small brands kind of come together and really help each other out. So I've loved seeing that.
One thing that's been special for me to see is we're seeing a lot of people, especially young people, who are saying, we understand that there are particularly seniors who are really stuck in their home right now. They're being shut off from families. They're not able to go out. And people are coming and saying, hey, how can I virtually connect with them and offer that support? which is one of the things we enable people to do, but really seeing these acts of kindness come out and seeing how people are looking out for their neighbors or looking out for people in different situations, just really understanding how hard it is, particularly for the most vulnerable in society right now. That's been really, really, really special to see.
Yeah, going with that theme, because our friend Frank Connolly was asking the same thing. They work within production of social impact content for brands, and there are critical necessities that underserved communities, I should say, are feeling right now. It's noisy, but are there ways that you guys feel that brands can stand out in terms of their engagement at a community level?
It's in terms of stand out, I think that it is more about how are you serving your community, right?
Yep. Yeah.
You're not going to be everything to everyone. And so I think this is a time that requires brands to focus on their immediate communities and bringing value to their communities. And I think by focusing on that will inevitably make you stand out rather than focusing on standing out, which I know is not what he's saying, but that's just how
fair enough. Yeah. Daniel, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly seen different groups come to us to say, hey, can we use your technology in a different way, whether it's teachers looking, for a PE lesson to stay connected with their students, through to people with different chronic conditions in hospitals who are cut off from their family being utilized. And I think part of someone's responsibility to society right now is to say, all right, I understand what you're looking to do. Let me see how I can work towards that to really help you. And that's something that I think there are terrific examples all around when you're just seeing even some of the biggest brands shifting some of their productions to building masks and things they wouldn't normally produce.
Yep. Shifting gears for a second, guys. In terms of engaging the at-home consumer, our friend Orchid was asking, brands like Nestle, like BurnAlong, are there new channels, new mediums that you at least are thinking about tapping into as this situation evolves that might not necessarily be intuitive or have done before this?
My focus area is kind of on the emerging. So,
Yeah.
That doesn't really change. I think there is a little more scrutiny and a little more interest on the emerging because people are adopting it faster now, right? Like a lot of people have the time. They want to explore new communications channels, whether it's Snapchat's coming, making it back with a resurgence.
Right.
So for us, it's not about shifting focus, but I think it's a little more like increased awareness of like the role and opportunities those channels can have on just our overall mix.
Yeah, I mean, I would say is that everything's really on the table right now because we are dealing with, this different reality, and the traditional means to say where we would communicate with people has shifted and what new opportunities are there. And some of the new technologies, Scott, that you've been highlighting do seem pretty exciting to us as additional ways to get above the noise and reach people and, from our perspective, help them.
It's funny, as we were having this conversation or this discussion around that question, our friend Ray Soto just chimed in, and it's a great follow-up. Is there a balance? And his question really speaks to the fact that maybe non-tech savvy consumers who might not be able to engage with you on new channels today will perhaps be much more savvy later this year. And so how do you build out a plan to engage those types of folks differently who are really learning on the fly?
It comes back to our core consumers, right? I mean, I joke sometimes, especially with the breadth of our portfolio and our distribution, that our audience is anybody with a mouth. But, when you break it down into our various brands, some focus more heavily on Gen Z versus millennials versus Gen X, right? And so for us, it's about, hey, like, what is our core demographic or our core audience doing, and changing up the media plans for that. Obviously, with a large portfolio, you end up trying out a little bit of everything, but it's kind of focus on serving your immediate focus and your immediate community first, and then kind of bring the others along.
We're definitely seeing an acceleration in that manner. I mean, for us, the youngest person who uses us is 6 weeks old. There are mum and me classes, but then we've got classes for 5, 6-year-olds, and they're learning how to just invite their friends to join them. On the other end, I think the oldest person to date is 97 years old. And so for, especially for an older generation that might be less familiar or less interested historically in some of the new technology, not to generalize, we're definitely seeing a huge jump in adoption. And I think that does open really, really exciting opportunities for both the younger generation and the older generation who are now using these technologies and discovering them in ways that they hadn't. I mean, when I've had a conversation with someone in their 90s this morning, how they're casting us to their TV, that was just not a conversation I would have had 6 weeks ago.
Yep. So it's 2:30, and I know people have to move on to their next calls and meetings. I just wanted to thank our panelists again. Orchid and Dan, you guys were fantastic, and we look forward to having you back. I wanted to thank all our virtual attendees. We look forward to doing these again. I think our events team has done a fantastic job pivoting from what we do in person to virtual, and hopefully we can do it again soon. So thanks so much, everyone, and stay safe and healthy, and have a great day.